Thank you. Good evening, everybody,
Good
ladies and
guy.
gentlemen,
Really
and
good
welcome
guy.
to the second night of our joint Select Board School Committee interviews for appointments for positions to the vacancy on the school committee. This is a continuation of last night's meeting, and so I'll just call the meeting to order as a continuation of last night's meeting. I have just two quick reminders, and before we go into our normal procedures, and that is that next Monday night, which is March 4th, at 7 p.m., there's the normal school select board meeting, 7 p.m. on March 4th for the select board, and then on Tuesday, March 5th at 5:30 p.m. here in this room, we'll have another joint meeting of the same group that's here this evening, and we will be voting on or appointing up to 4 members to fill the vacancies on the school committee. And so with that, if there's anybody on the panel who has any other comments or not, Tom Lacusa expresses his regrets. He'll be here a little bit later. He had something at work that's kept him a little later. So for folks who weren't here last night, or the people who were here as candidates tonight, I'll say that we are going to continue to follow the same procedures we did last night, and that is that the 5 candidates that we have this evening will be selecting lots, which will determine the order in which they will be questioned by our panel, and our panel will ask questions in the same order that they did last night, and that order is Mr. Ray, then myself, then Mr. Kelly, and Ms. Monahan, then well, actually, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Lacusa, if he's here, and Ms. Monahan, and then Mr. Foster, Mr. Lowe, and Marie
Don't you
Angelini.
go in reverse this time?
No, we'll vote in the reverse order.
I told you I didn't want that number in first.
You get to vote first?
You get to vote, you get to vote.
No, I get to go first.
Oh, that's right,
You
Maria.
get to vote second. Anyway, so with that, what I've done is I've gotten here numbers, actually, it's letters E through, I think, I, for the candidates to select. Last night, we did A through E. All right. So must be D. That's the right. You want to pick one? As long as you only got one. They're down there. They're down at the bottom.
Yes, I got you.
Okay. There should be 2 down there. Thanks. So tonight's candidates, I'll just call you alphabetically, if you can just give me the letter that you have. Gina Allentuck? What? J. Okay. Susan Bell?
I have G.
G, okay. Jamie Hench?
H.
H. Marcy Kearing?
F.
And William Knowlton?
I.
Hopefully that works out. So the order is going to be Marcy Kearing, Susan Bell, Jamie Hench, William Knowlton, and Gina Allentuck. So that'll be the order that we'll do things in this evening, okay? So no, it's FGH, I'm sorry. He's right, it's Kearing, Bell, Hench, Knowlton, and Allentuck, right? Now I got it, okay. So what I'd like to do is just ask the first candidate, who is Marcy Kearing, if you want to come forward. Each candidate will have a couple of minutes to just make a statement if they'd like to, and then we'll begin with questions. Please.
Good evening. I'm Marcy Kearing. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, first of all. I've lived in Long Meadow since 1996. We moved here primarily for the school system. My kids were just entering elementary school. I grew up and went to school in North Carolina, went to college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and majored in public policy analysis. And I kind of laughed to myself that as if I were a member of this board, it might be the first time I've ever used my major in my life. But I got involved in the Long Meadow Schools as a volunteer initially. I was very involved as a parent with my children's education, and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And that piqued my interest in education. And I decided to go back to school and get my teaching certification. Many of you know me as a teacher here in Long Meadow. I taught here for 12 years. I started by subbing and did my student teaching at Wolf Swamp, was eventually hired at Center School as a kindergarten teacher, worked in first grade and third grade there. And after working for about 10 years, I decided to go back and get my reading certification. Reading was my passion. Donna Hutton there was my supervisor and mentor throughout that process. I now work in West Springfield because an opportunity came available to work as a reading specialist in West Springfield. And so I've been there for 4 years. One of the reasons I'm here today is that I think I could offer the school committee a unique perspective, having been a staff member here. Also a parent of 3 children that went through the schools. They graduated in 2007 and 2009 and 2013. So that just tells you a little bit about myself. Again, I feel like I have a unique perspective as a staff member here. I kind of know the challenges of working in the school system. I've seen many budget cycles come and go. First, as a parent, I was here every year fighting for the music program. Every year they tried to cut it. Never worked, thankfully. But I am here because I now have time. My children are out of the house. And I really miss being part of the Long Meadow Schools. So I miss having my knowing what's going on, and I certainly am watching what's going on and have watched what has gone on recently. And that saddens me quite a bit with what has happened, and I feel like we really need a period of healing, and I feel like I can contribute towards that. I think one of the biggest challenges we have here in Long Meadow is maintaining our greatness, because we do have such a great reputation, and we are a wonderful school system, but maintaining that with the constraints of budgets and the increasing costs of special ed, I certainly understand that. So I think we have to be innovative and we have to be creative, and I'd like to be a part of that process.
Thank you. Can I ask questions, Mr. Ray?
Sure. So I agree with you. Having served with John Fitzgerald on the board, you couldn't come across 2 people with more diametrically opposed ways of coming at things. But John and I had the best of friendships on it because of his perspective in the Long Meadow Schools that helped me on the board. So I guess my question to you is, being out of the school so long and now wanting to come back into them, how relevant is that experience still in today's school climate or culture?
Well, this is only my 4th year away, so I feel like I'm not that far away. Still have teachers that are friends, still talk to them, so I do feel like I know what's going on. But, the budget process is something that's, I feel like I can, a lot of that is what's important about the budget process is the communication to the town and to the staff, and, you know, thinking about how that's going to be received. And so I feel like I know that culture.
Marcy, thanks for applying and being here tonight. What experience and what systems do you have experience using that might be used to evaluate a superintendent or other people that may report to the school committee?
Mm-hmm. Well, the experience I have is being evaluated as a teacher and knowing that process. You know, as teachers, we have to set goals. We have to determine how those goals are going to be measured. So I think that I have a lot to learn in terms of how a superintendent is evaluated. But I definitely think that it's a tool that can be used to drive school improvement. And that's the hope and that's the goal, that, you know, superintendent's driving the ship, and as we, as a committee of evaluators, we want to work collaboratively in that process, because everyone's common goal should be school improvement.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Our most important customers in Long Meadow Public Schools are the students. Could you tell me, as a school committee member, what would be your goals for the students of Long Meadow?
Mm-hmm. The goals would be to meet the needs of all the students. You know, some say we have a diverse population, some say we don't have a diverse population, but there's a large variety of students with different needs. And so to try to meet all of those needs is challenging, but not to look at one particular sector at all, I think, is important.
Thank you.
Ron?
Thank you. What do you think would be some good strategies to improve communication between the school committee and the community?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that, but I think that's something that I would certainly want to focus on. You know, newsletters, emails, public, I think a lot more going out to the public is important. And I think, you know, you work hard at doing that already, but maybe being creative and other ways to do that. But I think that needs to be a focus.
Thank you.
Richard?
I'm going to pass right now, Mark. Thank you.
Hi. What do you feel is your greatest challenge on the school board this year, and the school board's challenge?
Moving forward. I think, you know, I think it's really important to learn from mistakes and move forward and not focus on the past. I think it really needs to be a forward-moving committee, starting fresh, starting new, and perhaps team building.
Marie?
Hi, thanks for applying.
Mhm.
Are you going to be pulling papers to run for election in June?
I am considering that. I would definitely consider the one-year position.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mark?
No, thank you for applying. I appreciate your time.
Okay. As a public school teacher, the question that always comes up is, as with time, the school committee often has things going on during the days and at strange times. You know, how do you plan on being able to meet the time commitments of the school committee?
I think that would be a challenge because I am in front of students all day. So my time during the day is limited. I have lunch and I have, breaks here and there where I can, answer a quick email and that sort of thing, make a quick phone call, but my daytime hours are taken.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Hi. How can we, as a school committee, know when we have an effective school program?
Well, hopefully when you've created that program, you've created ways to measure that success. I think getting feedback from, like you said, the customers or the users of the program is very important. Climate surveys, I think, can be an effective way of getting that feedback. I find Longmeadow parents and students are usually pretty vocal and are willing to give their feedback. But I think listening to that, recording that, creating data to reflect that information is important, and taking the time to review it and to listen to all comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. What expertise might you bring to the school committee to complement the collective background of the current members?
Well, again, I think my background as being a Longmeadow teacher is really my strength in this case. I know some of you because I've taught your children, and so you know me as a teacher already and know who I am. And so, I would certainly want to take the time to get to know my fellow, anytime, I'm working with other teachers or principals or whomever, need to take the time to listen to anybody that's working with you to gain their perspective. One thing that I like to do when I'm trying to learn about a program or a policy or whatever is to ask a lot of questions. That's my way of gathering information and reflecting upon the information that I'm getting. So, again, I think my background as a teacher is important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hear a lot of reference that you said your main motivation was you were saddened by what had happened.
No, I didn't say that was my main motivation, but
Okay,
it
well,
is one
that
of
was a
them.
motivation to run for the board, and you thought one of the needs was team building. What were you saddened about? Could you expound a little bit more on that, please? I'd like to, I keep hearing similar comments. I'd like somebody to at least tell me what they're talking about.
Yeah, so I feel like anybody who's serving our town has the best interests of the town above and beyond anything else. Everyone's here because they like Longmeadow, they want the best for Longmeadow, and I believe that there's good in everybody, and I think it's just very unfortunate of what happened, because I think everybody really does want the best for Longmeadow and their students.
Okay, thank you.
I'm all set.
Oh. As I've said yesterday's, we're going to be coming up to our tax ceiling, which means we usually need to increase the budget by at least 2%. We're looking at salary increases. If we hit the tax ceiling and we're not able to make any legislative changes, there'll be some cuts coming up. How would you, I know you talked about fighting the cuts, but when you have no choice, would you be able to help the community and the school committee work through those cuts?
I do think so, and I also am a tax-paying citizen without any children in schools, and so the tax, with the increase in taxes a little more painful in that respect. So I do understand that our population can't tolerate, higher taxes. And so, I think looking for the least painful cuts, which is important, and justifying why you think that's least painful is important, in communicating that to staff, students, parents.
Thank you.
Good.
What should the role of the school committee be relative to trying to contain special educational costs within the district?
Well, since the role of the school committee is to create policies and programs, I have seen some good work done in this respect in the past, where we have created some wonderful programs in-house rather than sending students out of district, which is much more expensive. So I think it's important to continue to look for innovative ways to provide special education services right here in Long Meadow. And so I think that's part of the school committee's task.
Thank you. Ryan?
I'm all set, thank you.
Ronald?
I'm all set, thanks.
Richard?
Yeah, I have one quick, kind of following up what Marie was talking about. You're likely very much aware, you've heard us talk a lot about the tax base in our community, and that we're about to tax ourselves out, so there'll be no additional revenue. What type of leadership role do you feel the schools, or specifically the school committee, needs to be taking in this joint venture?
Well, we need to think of ways to save money where we can. So I think that, and nowadays we've got to be a little more creative in terms of that. And so exploring other districts and how they're doing things, doing some research about new innovative ways of serving students without increasing costs. So I think it's the school committee needs to work on looking at how it's done outside of towns like Long Meadow.
Yeah. Just as a side note, we won't be looking at not increasing costs, we'll be looking at decreasing costs. Because of the current labor market and contracts, the costs are going to go up, and that's what, 85% of our budget. So we'll be looking long range at reduction in services of some sort around the town if we hit the limit and if we're not authorized to go above the limit. Okay, thank you.
Bill?
I'm all set.
Marie?
Thank you.
Armin, do you have anything else? Just one last question. Are there any individual or new programs that you would like to bring to the Long Meadow Public Schools that you'd see the school committee as a platform for doing?
Absolutely. It's a program that we've had in the past, but we haven't had it for a number of years, Reading Recovery. I'm a Reading Recovery teacher. It's a early intervention program for struggling readers. It's hugely successful. And when I first came to Long Meadow as a teacher, we had it, and it was dropped soon after. As a Reading Recovery teacher, I just am amazed at the improvements it can bring to it's a specific program just for first graders. And one thing that it usually does is keeps students out of special ed. And I would love to see it here.
Thank you. Ryan, do you have anything else? Does anybody else have any other questions for Ms. Curie?
No, thank you.
No? Thank you very much. I appreciate you again applying, and come back next Tuesday night at 5:30 or not, and we'll make our appointments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call to the podium the next person, which is Susan Bell, if I've got my alphabet correct. And and you get a chance to make any statement that you'd like to, and then
Sure.
go for questions.
Sure, thank you very much. Yes, I'll just give you a brief history, mostly for the public out there, because you have my resume, but I grew up in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, just about an hour from here, in that little old town where Norman Rockwell had his art studio, and my parents were raised there, and I came out to UMass to go to graduate school, and that's when we moved to this area and sort of haven't looked back. Fell in love with this area. We moved here about 6 years ago to Longmeadow. Prior to that, in my professional experience, I've served for 17 years in public education in the Windsor Locks Public Schools in Connecticut. I started out there as a school guidance counselor, became the director of guidance, then went and became the high school principal. I had my first child when that happened, and so I took an opportunity to take an assistant principal position at the middle school. Got to learn a lot about middle school kids, which is very fun. It's my favorite level, actually. And then an opportunity became available with a new superintendent who came in to serve as the first assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and assessment. And I was moved into that position. During that time, prior to becoming assistant superintendent, I had worked towards my doctorate in educational leadership at the University of Hartford, specifically studying the role of educational leaders. During the time when I was assistant superintendent, the district was undergoing some significant transformation and to mastery-based learning, and I was intimately involved in that work. And when I became superintendent of the public schools in 2014, when I had my second child, started the job with a 3-month-old. We worked in earnest for the next 4 years to implement mastery-based learning across the district. The first class to graduate with a mastery-based diploma will be in 2020. This past year, again, knowing that over the last 4 years I saw my 3-month-old grow into a 4-year-old, I took an opportunity to work for a nonprofit organization that I currently work for. It's a remote position. It's called the Mastery Transcript Consortium. I've been working with them since July. The opportunity arose as a result of my involvement in mastery-based learning, obviously. We are a membership network where schools can join, high schools specifically, can join to opt in to use a new transcript that is designed to show the jagged profile. I'm quoting researcher Todd Rose from Harvard University. That's truly capturing the jagged edges of every student, their interests, their talents, their passions. You saw, and I'll state here in my application materials, that I identified my position as a conflict of interest only in that if Longmeadow High School were to choose to look into membership in the Mastery Transcript Consortium, I would, obviously I'm in the position of working for that organization. If there were any discussion, I would automatically recuse myself. I'm very aware, having been a superintendent of schools, of conflict of interests and making sure that that line is very clear. So I share that with you, that you have my word that, if any conversation ever came up, I would not be part of those conversations and or decisions or any votes relative to that. I'm a committed educator. I have devoted my entire career to children, to helping them grow, helping them realize their dreams. That's been my goal and my vision for success in education for a long time. We've got a long ways to go. Longmeadow has has a lot of the same challenges that many schools have out there. I'm fortunate now to work with schools in almost 250 of them, in a network where we have some of the highest performing independent schools and some of the most struggling underserved populations. So we're not unique in terms of the challenges that we face, but it's Longmeadow and we want to do the best for our kids. So I'm here because I have this experience. I have flexibility in my schedule. I've served for the last 3 weeks with the Long Meadow School Committee, and I've enjoyed that work tremendously. I could sort of use it as an opportunity to tell myself, do I want to continue? And I really do. You have a wonderful team here. You have a wonderful team of staff. You have a great superintendent, and I just want to continue the work to help move the district forward.
Thank you. Herm?
So I guess that'll lead into my question. Last 3 weeks, with us, you hit the ground running. I guess, what are the observations or, things that you think we could improve on as we move forward?
Well, 3 weeks is a short period of
I
time
understand.
to research that.
In that time, we did a lot of work.
We did a
though.
lot of work over 3 meetings. We certainly did, and I appreciated the efficiency, quite frankly, of that. I was surprised at how well we could get that work done. So I think the efficiency in general is great. I think the focus of what needs to be attended to is great. The topics were timely, in terms of being put forward. I'd like to hear more from the community. I know there was a question about how do you engage the community more, and I think there's different ways that we could do that. That don't have to be just us sitting up there. How do we have back and forth conversations with community members and more informal experiences? I do have experience doing that, so I'd be happy to work with the committee and with the superintendent on what that would look like to get more from the community. But in terms of the work that the four of us did together, I think we did all the right work in the time that it needed to be done. We had to do the budget, and we made some pretty important decisions so that we could move the district forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. What experience or systems do you use that enable you to effectively evaluate a superintendent of schools?
So I've been evaluated as a superintendent of schools, so I'm very familiar with the different systems that can be used, whether it's usually a state organization can provides some sort of Massachusetts School Boards Authority or association. There are samples that you can get, but I would, a 360 evaluation is always a great way for a leader to be evaluated, to get the most input from the most amount of people. And I highly recommend those. I engaged in, at least early on in my career, I was engaged in those, getting feedback from my administrative team in particular, being open to feedback in that manner. So a 360 evaluation is a great way to do that. The other data that you might bring in, Dr. O'Shea showed us the other night the data around how the schools have improved over the last 3 years under his leadership, and that's helpful as well. So bringing in those other pieces of data and looking at a holistic view of the improvement. Clearly, the school improvement plan, the district improvement plan is a big part of that. Is the superintendent meeting the indicators of growth that are outlined in those? And that's how most teachers and educators are evaluated. So you'd want to bring all of that in. So I'm very familiar with systems.
Just a
like
quick
that.
follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
Having identified all that, did you feel that you had a sufficient background in that data that you just talked about, data analysis, in order to vote effectively as you did to renew the superintendent's contract?
I did. Absolutely. I think we had data that, was very clear that things are moving in the right direction. We were basing that on a mid-year cycle. I had looked at previous tapes and evaluations of the superintendent. I had that, we all had that at our disposal, and I felt as though, given the indicators of growth, yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Ron. Kelly.
LHS is in the NEASC accreditation process, and part of that is defining the vision of the graduate.
Yes.
Could you please describe for us your vision of the Long Meadow Public School graduate?
Yes. So I was fortunate to attend the meeting with Principal Landers around the 6 areas of vision, and If I can quote him, one of the things he was surprised about was that innovation and creativity didn't make the top 6. And I have to say, like, that if I were to add to the vision of the graduate, or maybe, work them around, I would say those are 2 that are key. We live in a ever-changing world. It changes every day. The things that we relied on, simple things like the truth, change day to day. And so we need students who are going out into the world to be successful. We need them to understand how to navigate this ever-changing world. And it requires critical thinking. It requires problem solving. It requires deep skills in communication and understanding what's being presented to them at any given time, because they're bombarded with information. They need to be able to synthesize it and make sense of it and not take it at all at face value. I also believe very strongly that our students need to not only have all of those skills, but be fulfilled and happy. And in our current educational system, and I'm not just saying this about Longmeadow, I'm saying this everywhere, not every child is happy, because they're going through and trying to get to the next level and not enjoying a process that we really could create a very, a great learning experience for them if we break down some barriers to that great learning experience. So I think we want good neighbors, out of the education system that we build. And we don't want, kids to just be chasing the next level. We want them to enjoy the journey. In Windsor Locks, one of our, the focus at the center of our vision was, our mission every day was to create the conditions where students could be fulfilled, engaged, and excited to learn. And I think that's true for everywhere. So I would say that the vision, yes, includes all those components I just described, but also that we're helping to create people who are good neighbors and good friends and want to contribute to society.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know you spoke about this in your intro, but having served for a little while on the school committee and obviously being a community member as well, if you can maybe share one strategy that you think would be effective in terms of the school committee communicating better with the community?
Right. So we had, and this is my experience, I draw from what I've done. So in Windsor Locks, we had a community engagement sort of goal that we were trying to achieve, and we had some support from outside folks. But we had certain ways that we engaged the community, and we would have gosh, I can't remember the name of it. It's only been 8 months, but can't remember the name of it. But it was, we would bring parents, groups of the community, such as like the town planner would join us. We would have discussions with business owners, people who are just interested in the state of education and moving our students forward. And we would just have, dialogue about the components of the vision in particular, and how we could achieve those and how we could work together. So we were sort of like a task force of moving different levels forward. So that's one strategy, I'd say, and that happened usually on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and that was helpful for the Board of Education members on my governance team, to get some direct contact and dialogue with folks. And while they sat back and listened, mostly it was a way to really hear and be connected to the community.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Foster?
No, I don't have anything, Mark. Thank you.
I'm very curious at this mastery of skills as an alternative GPA. Can you just quickly kind of describe what that would look like?
Sure. So mastery of skills and as an alternative to GPA is really looking at, instead of looking at students by the courses that they took and the grades they achieved in those courses, you actually as a school and as a district have identified learning competencies that students need to address. So skills, content, things that are essential for them to achieve. We can't guarantee always in every single course that those competencies would be addressed. And the reason being is that those competencies need to have not just the academic skills, but also cross-cutting skills. So communication, collaboration, the kinds of things that are actually in your vision of the graduate that just came out at the high school. Problem solving and critical thinking. You don't just teach those in a class, right? You have to build those into what students are asked to do every single day, and then you measure it against a rubric that would be developed by the school to say whether or not they achieved a level of mastery that would prepare them for college and anything beyond high school. So the transcript that we're working on, if that's what you're talking about, it is it presents a binary model of whether or not you achieved a particular mastery area. So you either achieved it or you didn't. Basically is what's included on there. The transcript also is focused on foundational credits. Those that are required for just graduating, as well as advanced credits. So areas of passion and purpose that students want to explore on their own that the school offers. So that's some of the work that I'm engaged in right now.
Interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
I've been talking about hitting the tax ceiling, and you've
Yes.
heard me ask
Yes.
several of the candidates. But even before we hit the tax ceiling, we're working very hard to avoid that possibility,
Yes.
which means the next few years we're going to have to be working cooperatively, select board, finance committee,
Yes.
and school committee to find solutions and to implement those solutions. That's sort of different from what the committee's been doing in the past, in that it'll be a whole new set of things that we'll be working on. How do you find that you think that you'd be able to work in that environment, or the extra time that would be required for this advocacy?
I've had a lot of experience with budgets and with working with the town agency that, when things got rough. In Connecticut, a couple of years ago, things got really rough. And we were looking at, decreased aid to the district. We were anticipating a significant decrease in our budget, and so we had to plan for that. So there were a number of things that we didn't even have a budget for. I think it was 2017-18. And so I don't think we received a budget until January 1st of the middle of that year. And so I've engaged in that kind of problem solving with the town entity, and there's a lot of things that we did actually in my district to cut down on special education costs. We brought a lot of programs back in district, and I know that's what's been started here. We built programs for our students who are on the autism spectrum. We brought in programs for our students. We built a program for our students who are educated beyond age 18 till they're 21, and we brought that in-house and saved a great deal of money in tuitions. Over time, you don't realize those savings, but at the same time, in the initial year, you actually do. By bringing down your bottom line. So there's a lot of creative ways we can look at, but I'd be absolutely ready to sit down and look at how we maintain what the superintendent's mission and vision and the school committee's mission and vision is for the district by aligning the budget with those areas, but then making some decisions about, is there anything that isn't aligned, and how can we move that around? In the budget presentation that Dr. O'Shea shared with us, we saw there is an opportunity, and he's using it clearly in terms of reducing some staff due to enrollment. And it seems like there's a trend right now of lower enrollment, at least in K to 5, I believe, or actually K to 4. 5 is that bubble that we have. But in K to 4, we have some lower enrollments, and so if that trend continues, we'll see some opportunities there as well. But I think, you know, we have to do what we have to do because we can't go over that tax ceiling. I understand that completely.
Thank you.
Remy?
I'm good, thank you.
Hey, you got into it a little bit in your, just this recent answer, but a little bit more, if you could, about budgeting, and particularly what should the role of the school committee be relative to containing special educational costs within the district?
Well, the role of the school committee is to obviously, you know, listen to the recommendations of the superintendent based on the real data of serving the students, you know, whether in district or out of district. We have to also understand that there are simply, we could offer something in district and a PPT decision or an IEP decision could be that that student still goes out of district. So we have to always, you know, understand that that could be, you know, something that happens. So I think that it just stands to reason that we would look at supporting the new and innovative ways that we could save money. How do you support kids to stay in the district? What kind of services can you bring into the district through our cooperative services in the area that, you know, we could do better here? I think it's just really looking at all of that deeply and asking the superintendent to give us recommendations for reduction of costs.
Thank you. Ryan?
No, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Ron?
I'm all set, thank you.
Richard?
All set.
Okay. Will?
I'm good, thanks.
Maureen?
Are you going to run for election in June?
So that is still out. That decision is still out. Partly only because things, you know, we are still in a startup mode in my organization, and so I'm not sure what the, you know, 3.0 version of our 2.0 version right now strategy next year is. We're building it at the moment, so that's the only thing. Possibly the 1-year position. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Armin, you're up.
I'm all set.
Okay. Just are there any particular programs that you'd like to bring to the Long Meadow Public School systems that you see the school committee as a platform for beginning?
I am a big proponent of what the superintendent has described as, you know, outside learning experiences, internships, opportunities. We, in Windsor Locks, we call them extended learning opportunities. Building partnerships with community-based organizations to get our kids real anytime, anywhere experience is critical, and I'd love to support that work. You know, we have just echoing his sentiments, we have so many organizations in this area that our students could benefit from. The days of learning inside 4 walls really are coming to, you know, but it's not that you have to be in a classroom all the time. Getting out there and experiencing different environments and different opportunities that students can explore can help students make really good decisions about where they want to go later. I can't tell you the amount of students who engaged in internships in Windsor Locks and decided, that's not for me. And that's great for their parents because they didn't have to spend a ton of money on a college education that, you know, they just realized is not something they're interested in. It also provides a great opportunity to showcase our students out in the community, and there could be great partnerships that develop from that. That, you know, it's just a great way to build community around the schools and really gain more connections for the Long Meadow Public Schools.
Great, thank you. I don't know, we seem to have gone around without any other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions of Ms. Bell?
Nope.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are we who's Jamie Hench?
He's in the hallway.
Oh, okay, if you can, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, if you don't mind just grabbing them. Okay.
I was hoping since I got an H, I get a free pass.
The hall, is that the hall pass?
No, that's a hall pass, right? For Hench? No. So, too bad, too bad.
You got a couple of minutes, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you again for having me. I was back whenever the original interviews happened. I got the chance to also speak in front of you. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity. I'll introduce myself to everybody out there again. Jamie Hench. I'm at 40 Eastham Lane. I have 4 children within the system. I have 1 at Williams School. I have 2 at Center School, and I have 1 on his way to Center School. All boys. Yes. Craziness, right? Yeah. So my plans right now are to go through the process in June. I've already filed for both the 3-year and the 1-year. By the end of this week, I plan to make a decision as to either one and let the town clerk know that at that point in time. That is my plan. I've also been attending all of the meetings that the school committee is having, so I've been a part of all those meetings, listened in to them. Have not been able to give any of my own feedback and my own personal experience, but I've been watching and following everything that's been going on within those meetings just to stay abreast of the situation. So that being said, back whenever I originally had the chance to speak, before you, I had the pleasure of being able to give you a slight introduction to what I've done and what my experiences are. I think I bring a very unique skill set into this. I haven't heard anybody speak yet who has a skill set such as mine, where I have a significant business background, a business owner background, and an education background. I have not heard anybody that has all those backgrounds. I have a very diverse skill set, as well as a look on life and the many aspects of things that we're all talking about with regards to education. That being said, I currently own an Ameriprise Financial business over in East Long Meadow. That is a business that has a multitude of clients. I help, on the flip side of things, many professors and folks at AIC, Winnick, Holyoke Community College, Smith College, and many other, Westfield, Wofford, and many universities. And I get a very different look at the professors, at the individuals who work at those universities, that many of the folks who've either spoke or are within the organization that I'm sitting before, they don't get that opportunity. They get to hear about a lot of different things, both within the schools, within the education system, but also within their personal lives, about things that they're worried about, things they see that kids need. That I have a very good opportunity there to learn and be educated by the educators while I educate them. So very unique opportunity there. I've been doing that for about 5 years now. Prior to that, I was a vice president at a multi-billion-dollar company in Keene, New Hampshire. And the story behind that is, it'll hopefully answer some of your questions, is why I'm here today. I was in a position where I worked there for about 12 years. I was doing deals, I was doing M&A, I was doing legal things, I was doing all sorts of compliance things, and basically handling a lot of things with regards to what we would call high finance. I had an opportunity at that point to be promoted to senior vice president. I would have been the youngest by about 25 years at that point in time. And I made a decision. It was a life decision where I chose either to go and chase a lot of what everybody else chases, and a lot of people would look at me and say, you're crazy for giving that up, or do things such as be with my kids, coach my kids' teams, and create some time for myself and opportunities such as this. This is not what I expected, but I created time for myself to where I would be able to step up and do something like this if it ever presented itself. That is why I am here. I have the time. I have kids in the system. I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about in many different aspects, which I know you will ask me about, things that I think are very important to the system and things that I think are important to children as they progress through high school and as they get to college. I have a very different perspective on different things that as they get into college, they lack. And this isn't a Long Meadow thing. This is a nationwide thing that I think, we have a chance to address potentially, or at least review and see if it is something we want to address. Now, from an education standpoint, that brings me back to my job prior to CNS. I actually worked in athletics, Division I athletics, and just so you understand my career there and all the different experiences that I had that I am pretty sure nobody else has had, because it's unique in that I came into it and moved from Pittsburgh down to North Carolina, and I was recruited down there to be a college wrestler. So I had the opportunity my freshman year to get in and make the team. I went in as a freshman and I won the spot, and I was a freshman starting as a Division I wrestler. And I progressed over those 4 years and was very successful in my own right, and was within many national championships to where we went and competed in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and got the honor to assistant coach my alma mater. There was a vacancy, they needed somebody to fill in, and they wanted somebody to do the recruiting, the compliance, and all that goes along with being a college sport. So I did that for about 2 years. I worked with all the student athletes, both from a academic side as well as a athletic side, because there is a balance there, and it's a balance here, but in college it's even more of a balance. I know that we've had a lot of things that have been in the media here, but you've seen things that happen in college athletics. It becomes national. It becomes on ESPN. I worked intensely with that side of it with regards to that program as I transitioned from being an assistant coach to start working as an assistant AD for finance within the business. So I also did that and worked with all of the different coaches. So going back to why I think I'm fairly qualified for this position, or at least should be considered, is within all those experiences, and those experiences back within education, working with the chancellor, the vice chancellors, to not only hit from an academic, but also an athletic and a compliance, and then also working with all of the different athletic programs, provide you with a way to give and take. No one's always right. If you want to see a very diverse group of people, go work within athletics and try to talk within the women's basketball, the men's basketball, the softball, the cross country, and try to get everybody to agree on something. That was something that we had to do on a regular basis with regards to scholarships as it related to Title IX, and we spent our time doing all that and getting everybody to agree. That's what I think I would be able to bring to the table, to be able to create some balance, but also have a very differing perspective, and a perspective that I haven't heard yet, whether it's to come, where I see things a lot differently. I've had experiences that nobody sitting here has had yet, both athletically, within Division I athletics at a national level, but also within coaching and within business, and learning the different things that both the athlete needs, from an academic side, what they need, and how to make it all mesh and all work. So that is why I jumped in. I'm excited about the opportunity to. I was not happy about, not that I'm competitive at all, not happy about coming in second or third or whatever place I came in last time, but not getting the opportunity. But I was willing to come back because I do find it very important. And I obviously have 4 children in the system, as well as 4 nieces and nephews that I care about. So, thank you.
Thank you. Arm.
Sure. So we are in the heat of budget season right now. If you were selected to be on the committee, how quickly could you get up to speed in being able to help, promulgate that budget across the town and, prepare that message for town meeting?
So one reason why I came to the prior meetings, because I knew that from the agendas that budgeting was going to be talked about. I wasn't able to get into the details that I would wanted to, but I did see all of the details for where we were moving some funds from Glenbrook or to Williams, and that happens with regards to salaries of teachers as to where they go, as well as gas, utilities, and things like that. I truly believe that I could get up to speed in a fairly quick fashion. The budget we're talking about, honestly, is a very tiny budget in my mind. I'm used to, from my previous career, dealing with billions of dollars, not 37 million. Most of the budget is, what was it, $30.5 million is all labor. So that's already committed money, so you're only dealing with a variable budget of a very small amount of money. And the line items within there, a lot of them are fixed. I know they're variable. Your gas bill goes up and down, but it is a variable event. So I'm very confident that I could jump in and be up to speed in a pretty quick fashion.
You're in the minority of our 10 applicants not currently working in the, I'll call primary schools systems. And because of that, I guess I'd particularly like to know what qualifications you think you have for the experience you have in setting policies for a public school district like Long Meadow.
Mm-hmm. So within the university, we set both compliance and policies within the university. So that prior experience, we did that on a regular basis, both setting it for the student athlete as well as for the actual coaches in the teams. But also within my administrative capability, or what my duties were at my job at CNS. That was a lot of administrative and setting policies, and a lot of the similar things. I know there's a lot of people say there's a big difference between the public, private, and whether it's a business setting or not. There's a lot more similarities than I think a lot of people want to give them. I know sometimes you go top down budget versus bottom up budget, and there's all those different scenarios, and you're obviously dealing with a municipality and tax funds and revenue versus non-tax funds revenues. But when it comes down to it, setting those policies requires good thought, good insight, and using people that you know. My number one thing that I think if you ask pretty much anybody that knew me, my best thing is I actually listen. I generally do not talk. This is probably more than I generally would talk. I would listen a lot more than speaking as I digest. If I didn't know something or wanted to use something, I would use one of the professors I know at different universities, one of the principals I know in other districts, and I would use them as a sounding board, not with details, but you can always learn from the different perspectives that they have, and I think I could bring that just by listening and bringing a balance to the situation.
Thank you. Brian?
Hi, Jamie. As a parent of LPS students, what are you looking for from the school committee, the superintendent, and the schools?
And I know earlier, a lot of folks were, talking about, creating some calmness or whatnot. The friction or the whatnot, everything that happened doesn't work. That happens. It happens in life. That happens in business. I think, working towards, that stability is great. So I just had to at least mention that because that's kind of the elephant in the room. It doesn't worry me as much because if you bring balance to a situation, you're willing to listen and actually have a conversation with people who have very differing views. And I've been in many of those situations where you just don't have the same views. You just got to listen and have the conversation. From my own individual children, I just look for them. My number one thing, and you may find this crazy, but it's safety. I sit back and I go, I just want my kids to be safe. I know and can sit back, and I've dealt with many of the professionals that we have. We pay $30 million to a group of teachers that are fabulous. I haven't had a bad interaction with any of them from an administrative on down. So they're there to teach our children and to guide them and to help them. As long as they're in a nice, safe environment, I feel very confident that they're going to do right by the children. Not that they're going to be perfect, but they're going to probably do what's right based off of what I have seen. That obviously always isn't the case, but it's pretty much the norm that I've seen across the gamut.
Thank you.
Ron?
Thank you. I think you've already answered my initial question about the expertise that you would bring to complement the current members. So I'm going to move to my second question of what do you think would be some good strategies to improve communication between the school committee and the community?
So at the last meeting, and the one thing I ended up writing down from the last meeting, it came back to the survey that Marty had, shown and presented, and it came to two things. The one was, is the district developing and leveraging community partnerships? And 75% of the people that actually came and voted on that were parents. So my first thing was, what are the parents doing then? I mean, that's criticizing yourself. I mean, that was the lowest mark we got. If you're saying that the partnerships within the community, which we're the partner, we're the ones that are going to bring something to the table. We're the Smith person or somebody that's going to bring a robotics program or bring a program that we didn't otherwise have. We're saying that we're not doing a good job with that. I'd like to understand, where does that communication come from? I don't know if it comes from the school committee. Does it come from the administrators? I think clarifying that in my own mind would lead me to a bunch of things, the action steps where you would take that are measurable, that are actionable, and something you can monitor to say, are we getting out to the public? They obviously think that someone's doing a bad job with community partnerships. How do we improve it? And not over focus. I do see that there have been a lot of evaluations. I mean, it's almost evaluation overload. I went and reviewed all the report cards. I went and was reviewing the information that was presented at that meeting, and you got to have it. It's got to be actionable. In a business, you can't have all this data everywhere and not have something that's actionable that you're going to focus on, because once you start getting more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, you end up not succeeding and you're not able to monitor them. So I would say going back to those surveys, picking the ones that are really kind of stand out and say, make you think, what are we missing here? There's obviously really talented people in the town of Long Meadow. Why are we not utilizing them in the way we should be? And what are they trying to tell us here?
Great, thank you.
Mr. Foster.
You said a lot.
I know, I usually don't talk this
I know, I
much
appreciate it.
either.
I've been just sitting there
I was just
listening.
trying to explain.
I've enjoyed listening to you.
Last time I didn't give enough information. I figured I would give a little bit more.
Well, you're
so.
doing well.
So.
You have a lot of passion. I can sense the passion. I can feel it. If you were to become a member of the school committee, can you tell me what's your greatest passion that you would bring? What do you want to do?
I tell you, the couple things that I'm passionate about, and I'll give you two, because I watch it, and what we've been talking about, what's the student, as they transition from Long Meadow, what do we want? Everybody, obviously, a good citizen. But a couple things that I see is I'm very passionate about that I go, why can't we do this right? Most people, as they transition to high school, and as they transition out of high school, and as they hit the workforce, financially, they don't know what they're doing. Nobody really ever, communicates, teaches, makes some just easy things that you could teach a kid. Very passionate about that. I'm also very passionate about fitness and physical well-being, social well-being for kids, and I think a lot of it all ties together. Whether it's STEM, that is obviously focusing on a specific, science, technology, but how does that relate to the social well-being of the kid and how much they're using the video game or using the digital media, which in my opinion is one of, the bigger challenges that we have. Social media is everywhere. How we balance that and how we balance STEM that's a tough thing. They're both incredible programs. They're teaching what we need to teach, but there's a balancing act there that you better balance very, very well, or you're going to overdo it one way or the other. And there's a lot of things out there from a fitness and well-being and healthiness of children as well as parents that would do us a lot of justice to teach our kids about. I think we kind of let kids go through school and skip those two things on a fairly regular basis and not tie it back to, does it make us do a better job being a fit person or doing more fitness-related activities, does that make me a better student? There's a lot of research about it. I am passionate about it. So,
Okay.
but I would say number one would be the financial, number two would be the fitness. So just from what I see from the backside of things, you remember I've got a lot of visibility as I went through my career. Now I'm in a place where I'm looking at the flip side saying, how do we not teach this? This isn't complicated stuff. You know, these are the ABCs that we should just be teaching kids about, so as they transition into their careers, they're good citizens and they're, you know, good employees or good, whatever it may be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Bill?
Would you wrestle 145?
No.
No?
A little bit more.
Oh,
So I got time. So I of all the things, you know, and there was a lot of questions here about different things, but whenever I went into high school, I was 4'11", and I wrestled 103. Okay, so I wrestled 103 my freshman year. I wrestled 152 my senior year, and then I started college at 167. So when you start college at 167, you're basically wrestling juniors and seniors because it's just more developed, and you know, no different than developing academically, developing physically. You develop especially as a boy. So I wrestled 167 all 4 years. The fourth year was just absurd.
that's a lot of weight classes.
Yes, it was just too. I still.
It's too bad Tom's not here.
Yeah.
Tom Lacouche is a big wrestler.
He was a big wrestler,
We
too?
might even be able to have it right here.
Do I have a chance against him? Do I have a chance?
Not me.
I got a chance. He's no. Okay.
So we're taking odds.
Okay.
I'm sure we can find
Yeah,
a
he's
bear.
He's cagey.
Yeah, we're
He's
taking
cagey.
odds.
Come on.
All right,
But
let's
yeah,
get back to Bill.
Sorry.
Now your real question.
That's actually all I had. You've answered all my other questions by
Fine. Marie?
talking so much.
Have you ever worked on a government committee, or, I know you probably interfaced with government, but it's a slower pace. We
I know.
want to get something done.
Yep.
He always says this, no, this is not, it's not your time, Marie, it's government's time
The
period.
university, so I obviously work within business. Business is quicker. You've asked a lot of questions about how are we going to address this. You know, a business would address this in a week or two if you had budget constraints. This is more like the university setting. You know, the university, we worked from year to year, or 2 years out, or 3 years out. It's a way slower pace. Yes, I've worked at a slower pace before, and had to, you know, more plan from year to year versus, you know, week to week or month to month, like a business would. It's actually more relieving because you can truly plan versus react. I mean, businesses in a lot of cases have to react to changing environments, changing economic conditions that, you know, we don't have to as much. So yes.
Thank you.
Armin?
So you've talked a lot about the data and analytics, and one of the things we faced on the board is like the clinical use of data, using it as a sword instead of a foundation. Tell me a little bit about your approach to data analytics.
So within data analytics, so, you know, all the different things that I believe Susie had brought up about the 360 and all these different evaluation metrics that are out there, those are used in business too. I mean, it's really no different. Those are valuable tools. I almost look at whenever you're pulling together data, you've got to create, I almost would call it, and we did this for people within our businesses, it's almost like the portfolio. You have this portfolio that you're trying to work toward, you're measuring, and you have all these different metrics that'll fit into it. And you measure, you monitor, and you make sure that, you know, you can track each of those in a very fair manner, and pull them all together. But I like data that cross-references one another to where you can kind of see if a discrepancy. Just standalone data sometimes it might make you chase something that isn't real. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You answered this to a little bit of with Mr. Foster's question about your a passion, but is there any new program that you would like to bring to Long Meadow Public Schools that you could see using the school committee as a springboard for implementing?
The one thing I would bring up, I don't think, and I won't say it's mine. I would say that I've seen teachers in some of my children's classes that I think are really good programs. It doesn't look like it's district-wide. My fourth grader is in a class with Arlene McLean, and she has a Mindful Movers program. I think it's fabulous. They keep kids moving. It's using up some of their energy, and it's getting them focused on the task at hand. I think that's very interesting. I think that there's a lot of professionals that have a lot of great ideas within our system that we should listen to them. That program I really look at as being a good opportunity for further enhancement throughout the whole system. But nothing specific where I have an agenda to go, this is what I'm trying to bring in. I see a lot of what's going on, and I like a lot of the things that I'm seeing from many of the teachers as well as administrators.
Thank you. Ryan?
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Bronwyn?
Yes, I'm all set, thank you.
Richard?
I'm set.
Bill?
I'm good.
Marie?
Thank you.
Armin, I just have one last question, and that's my, what should the role of the school committee be relative to containing the special educational costs within the district?
So, obviously, that's a topic that is sensitive and a tough one as you go from parent to parent. But you look at it from a school committee member, and I kind of sit back and go, it's obviously your legal obligation. You have to do it, and say it's your moral obligation, just because you want to help and assist kids in any way that you possibly can. But as you dig into it, I think you also have to make good decisions. There's always those decisions. Do you hire somebody to full-time to work? Do you outsource it? It's very similar to what happens in businesses like IT and things. I know I wouldn't equate that to this because these are children and these are more important things, but you have to look at it as what's best for the district and how you can make the district better as a whole for that grouping of students that is either on an IEP or needs special assistance. But I think there's a lot to go into that to make any real general comment.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? Mr. Hench, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming in today and for your application and for applying for the
Thanks.
Thank you.
position. I guess the next is Mr. Knowlton. Just introduce yourself and give us some statement.
I feel like it's getting close to my bedtime. I don't
You haven't been doing this for 2 nights.
That's true. I'm Bill Knowlton at 23 Edward Circle. I've lived here in Long Meadow for I think either 12 or going on 13 years with my family. My background is I'm a middle school educator for almost 24 years now in the same school, in the same district, East Long Meadow, the town of East Long Meadow, at their middle school. 12 years of it was as a inclusion special ed teacher, and then I transferred from there to the more recently, the last 10 or 11 years, as a English teacher. Mainly grade 8. A few years as an inclusion teacher, I also did grade 6. Bachelor's degree at UMass in political science, master's degree Westfield State University in education, and more recently certificate of advanced graduate study in curriculum design with the University of New England. I'm here before you tonight for a couple of reasons. One of them is, I would say, with a sense of gratitude to the town of Long Meadow and to the school system of Long Meadow. And I say that because I have a son who's currently a junior at Long Meadow High School. He started his educational career at Yeshiva Academy as a 2.5-year-old, and then he did a couple of years at Montessori, and then he went on to in kindergarten at, first grade at Williams. And I say gratitude because my son has always been such a happy student in the Long Meadow school systems. He has thrived. He's done wonderfully, very successful, very motivated, very excited. And when I think back about, the years that he's been here, it's just been a wonderful journey. And it's been like an honor for me to watch him through that journey. And I attribute all of those things, to the wonderful work being done in this room and in conjunction with the teachers and the administrators and the community itself. So there's a sense of gratitude which brings me here tonight. The other reason I'm here is because I asked myself, what could you do to show your support to the town and to the school system? And the answer to that was easy. You can step up to the plate maybe and see if you're needed. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But that's what brings me here this evening.
Thank you very much. Armin?
So I'm going to steal your thunder.
Now what am I going to do? That's your question.
So with your experience with special education and those children who are the most vulnerable within our system, what would be your approach to programs, or in light of the questions we've had surrounding budget?
It's a good question. The system I work in is you wouldn't think it's very different than the Long Meadow school system, but it is. I'll just put it out there that we have a large corporate tax base in the town of East Long Meadow. So funds, in my own personal experience of 12 years in special ed, funds were really available in that town. We've really never struggled in a very major way with funding and budgets and budgetary concerns in East Long Meadow. But being a parent here in Long Meadow, I am very aware that is a major concern, because we don't get we don't have a lot of corporate tax money funneling into our system here. The special ed programs are necessary, obviously. I think you have to be careful, because they can if they go unchecked, they can grow and grow, and the budget then balloons out of control, and things have to sort of be reeled in. So I think it's a lot of prioritizing. When you talk about special ed, you have the legal parameters that you can't really get around. But then there are other ways to work within the program, and looking at the program and how it operates on a daily basis. Like, I'll give you an example. Could a service be delivered by someone that's not a full-time staff, maybe a part-time staff? Could a service be delivered by someone that is a trained paraprofessional? So it's looking at all of those things on an individual basis and seeing where you might contain and try to reel in terms of the monetary commitment.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As a public education primary school teacher, you've got kind of a pretty busy 9 to 3 or 9 to 2:30. How would you make yourself available for the time commitments of the position on the school committee?
That's a great question. My hours at Birchland begin, the students arrive at 7:25, and they're out at exactly, the bell is at 2 o'clock. So yes, it is yes. So my hours are actually 7:25 to 2 every day. There are a few days a month where I have meetings, curriculum meetings, staff meetings that I'm required to attend. But looking at my own schedule, I wouldn't be here tonight if I felt like scheduling was an issue. If I felt like I was going to have overlap and it would be a major concern to be part of this this committee. So I don't really see that as a major issue. I'm generally out of school, staying with kids and helping in various committees and stuff like that. I'm generally out by 3:15 in the afternoon.
Thank you. Brian?
As a parent of an LHS student, and in light of the accreditation process the high school is going through, could you please describe your vision of the Long Meadow graduate?
I did take part in that survey that came out. My vision for the Long Meadow student is as everything that goes along with being an outstanding academic graduate of Long Meadow schools and everything that goes along with that. I feel like what they settled on are things that are really important to the Long Meadow student. I would like the Long Meadow student to also be able to go out in the world and face the global challenges that they face in a way that they feel confident with themselves. And when I say confident, I mean not so much just academically or with their skill set, but they have confidence with themselves to face the challenges that are going to lie ahead of them. So I think that what goes along with that is the notion that I'm happy with myself, I believe in myself, and also I believe in the world around me. So I believe a lot in environmental causes with global issues, global warming, and a lot of those things I would hope that the Long Meadow graduate carries with them out into the workplace and the global society.
Thank you.
Ron?
Thank you. What expertise might you bring to the school committee to complement the collective background of the current members?
I would just say to that I would bring my experience of being a public school teacher for a long time. I've served on several committees throughout the years. I was chairperson of the diversity committee at the school at one point. I've also served on the principals advisory committee, which is, as you guys know, that they do a lot of budgetary work on that committee, in addition to a lot of other issues that pertain to the school itself. I would also bring the aspect of being a parent here in town for a pretty lengthy amount of time and experiencing that ride, that journey with my son. So I would say combining that with the work experience, I would hope that I would be able to bring some positive attributes to the committee.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Richard?
I'm going to do a reverse. What would the impact be on the Long Meadow School Committee if you're not selected?
Oh, that's it. The impact if I were not selected. I'm not sure that it would be a negative impact, because if I wasn't selected, I would walk away knowing that you good people chose the right person to be on the committee. So if that were not me, that would be someone that I would have confidence in, that you guys, looked at and heard and said, this is the right person for the job. And I would walk away with that confidence in that person.
You have confidence in us?
I do.
Not you, them.
I was asking. I feel good. He's got confidence. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Some of these questions start to all sound the same. What do you see are the opportunities and the challenges in the school district?
There are so many opportunities in the Long Meadow school system and in our town. A student lucky enough to attend Long Meadow Public Schools, they're getting such an outstanding education. I mean, we consistently rank very high in the region and in the state with our scores. We have excellent athletic programs that do very well within the region. We have an amazing music program, both vocal and performing. So the opportunities are endless. Some of the challenges I think that face our system right now, I think that we have a little bit of healing to do with some of the things that have happened in the past. And I watch the meetings. I watch both the select board meetings and the school committee meetings, and I feel I'm really happy that I feel like some of that healing has already begun. I'm getting that sense. I think that there is some trust building to be reestablished over the next few months and over the next year. Trust in terms of trust between the community, its residents, the both boards, and most importantly the school buildings, the principals, the administrators, and the superintendent. And I'm confident that trust will be rebuilt, and probably rather quickly.
Thank you.
Marie?
I don't remember. Did you say you're pulling papers, or are you running in June? Have you decided?
You know, it's a great question. I didn't know I was going to be asked that this evening, so I had to think about it. I would probably say that my initial thought was to come here, and if selected, I'd be here to help bridge the interim gap to June and do my very best to be a positive contributing member. So my focus would be that first. I tend to be the type of person that maybe at the end of my tenure, I would sit back and I would say, you know, I would ask myself, how did you do, Bill? How do you feel you did? And I would answer that honestly. Are you proud of what you did? Do you feel like you could have done better? I also believe in turning to the person left to me and right to me and saying, how did I do? Like, can you give me some constructive criticism? I would take all of those things into account, and before I would say, yes, I would apply for the next year out. But I wouldn't, it's not something I would take off the table.
Okay.
But I would just want to evaluate my own personal feelings about being successful in the role.
I want to thank you for stepping up, and if you don't decide to go on with June or don't get the position, please consider our other committees.
Okay.
I think you'll enjoy volunteering.
Thank you very much.
Armin?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
You know, Bill, question about evaluating the superintendent of schools, and you know, what training or experience do you have that makes you believe you're able to, or that you would use to best evaluate the superintendent of schools?
Okay, great question. I would first of all, probably say I would have to draw on my own evaluations, which has really dramatically, you can imagine, you know, how much they've changed over the last 24 years, and I had to, you know, watch those changes and be a part of them and get used to them. And so I would draw upon my own evaluations first and foremost. You know, data is brought into the mix, you know, but data is, when you're evaluating, I think it's, you know, important not to use data in a bubble. It's got to be used as a tool to assist you to evaluate someone. I believe that evaluation should never be personal in any way, and I only say that because I know that I reflected on some of my evaluations over the years, and some of them have been really, you know, performance-based, and some of them I have felt personally that they were personal in nature, and I didn't find that appropriate, and it did not leave me with a good taste in my mouth. So I think it's important to bring objectivity to that process. So never, never looking at things on a personal basis, and really just trying to focus on what's transpiring in the community, in the school system, with the superintendent, and having a pulse on the feelings maybe of the community and the students in the high school, in the middle schools, and just trying, like I said, to be as objective with that process as possible.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, so this question is thinking of you as a teacher. How do you know when you've been successful in your classroom?
I know when I am successful in my classroom because my students, they're 8th graders, my relationship with them is very, very open and very verbal, and we have an extremely wonderful level of communication between each other. So they will tell me, my students will say, wow, Mr. Knowlton, that was so fun and it was so awesome and we learned so much and I want to learn more about that, or I want to learn more about that. And if I'm feeling like something transpired in the classroom that I was a little shaky about, I'll say to them, how did I do with that, guys? Or is there something I can do better? How did you feel about that? And the communication, the back and forth is always super honest, the exchange that I have with them. So that's the best way I can answer that is, when I think about myself in my classroom every day with my students. And I think that form and level of communication with them brings a certain amount of love between us and them and myself, because they say to me all the time, we love you, Mr. Knowlton. You know what I mean? If I get down on myself, they'll be like, no, you're great. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
What do you think would be some good strategies to improve communication between the school committee and our community?
I would hope, or I would want communication to be so open and so transparent and ongoing in a manner that it doesn't come to a point where there's a breakdown. So it needn't get to that level. If you want specifics, I would say maybe looking at ways to allow the community and the residents to communicate with the committee on a more regular basis, maybe like an open mic night, where once a month there's really nothing on the agenda except for the expectation that people will come in and there'll be just an open discussion about how things are going and what some of their concerns are. And I say residents, and I 100% include students on that level as well. I think a 3rd grader has every bit as much to offer in terms of advice and feelings about what's happening in the school system as much as a 12th grader does. So looking for ways to bring that into the committee as much as you can. Maybe anonymous tip boxes or I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but things of that nature.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Richard?
No, I'm okay. Thank you, Mark.
Bill?
I'm all set, thanks.
Marie?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
I'm just going to ask if there are any programs that you would like to see implemented that you use the position on a school committee as a springboard to try to implement.
Thinking about the town of Long Meadow, I would love to see maybe more, whether it be after-school programs or programs administered throughout the school day, more programs that maybe connect our students with students outside of our town, and maybe when thinking about that, helping to bring more diversity into their lives. So fostering relationships with students outside of towns, especially with towns that are not economically similar to the type of town that Long Meadow is. I mean, obviously, we are what we are, and we're proud of that. But it would be great to be able to connect our students with more people outside of our town, just to get more of a feeling of diversity and for our students that maybe they're not exposed to as much as they could be within our town. And that could be regionally or could be globally.
Thank you. Ryan, do you have any further questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Bronwyn?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, Mr. Knowlton, thank you so much for
Thank you, guys.
being considerate and applying, and appreciate you coming
I'm
in
gonna
here.
go have some dinner.
Go
Okay, have a good evening.
Go have some dinner. Finally, not...
That's how this works. You eat really late.
I'd like to just call up Gina Allentuck.
Gianna.
Gianna, I apologize. Gianna. And if you can just give us a little background here, and
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to come and interview. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to read my original letter to the Select Board and the School Committee because I'm a visual learner and it will help me stay on track. So my name is Gianna Allentuck and I'm 47 years old and I live at 53 Westmoreland Avenue with my husband Lee Allentuck and 2 school-age children, Santino and Cecilia. Santino's at the high school and Cecilia's at Williams Middle School. And we've lived in Long Meadow for 12 years. As a parent and coach in Long Meadow, a leader and an adjustment, social, emotional, behavioral counselor in a Springfield public school, an active education advocate and community volunteer, and president of a local nonprofit serving underprivileged youth, I am confident I will be a positive, purposeful, and effective school committee member who will fiercely advocate for our students, schools, and community. And here's why. My November 2018 letter and comments to the Long Meadow School Committee regarding the need for the superintendent's contract renewal were expressions of recognition and appreciation for their efforts in collaboration with the superintendent, and were founded in my sincere offer to help resolve the conflict between the 4 nay voters and the community in order to restore order and effectiveness for our town. Given the January 2019 resignation of those members, I'm holding myself accountable to my promise and I'm applying for one of the vacant positions. With an emphasis on connectivity and productivity, my platform will be fostering collaboration, communication, and evidence-based decisions on the part of the school committee, but more importantly, garnering understanding from and engagements with residents regarding the committee's scope of service and obligation to the people we serve, especially our children. In studying the files relative to the school committee, I understand the purpose to be making and following through with decisions and policies pertaining to public education in Long Meadow by considering the facts as well as the will of the people. Critical to the implementation of these goals is establishing a balance between statutory requirements and citizen expectations. In order to do this, I will apply my life experiences and my professional experiences and talents as an educator. Particularly as a school counselor, my duty is to consider all sides and perspectives of the situation in order to effectively and efficiently collaborate in making decisions and solving problems. Additionally, I will dedicate myself to purposeful leadership with school committee colleagues and on behalf of residents by recognizing that each member of the committee brings a unique perspective, knowledge base, and skill set, and that each has a role to play in productive decision-making and problem-solving. Like my former soccer playing days, I was never the most skilled player, but I was elected high school team captain, awarded college team spirit awards, given the Terminator nickname in my adult league, and donned overall heart accolades at every level because of my ability to identify needs and gaps and my willingness to supplement wherever needed in dedication to the team's overall success. As evidenced by my resume, I am a leader in my school and district and an active facilitator or member of groups and programs. I am wanted on teams not because I am the best at a targeted skill or topic, but because I'm the best at being part of a team, particularly in facilitating, questioning, offering purposeful feedback, establishing balance, raising awareness, and celebrating the achievements of that team and of the constituents that it serves. My reference comments sheet provides further evidence of my effectiveness as a parent, collaborator, educator, mentor, and team member. And I want you to know and I want you to trust that I will apply all that same energy and devotion to my service on the school committee, and especially to the youth and the people of Long Meadow whom we serve. Thank you again for your time and consideration of my candidacy.
Thank you. Armin?
Is that a New York Giants jacket?
It is.
Oh, that's enough.
Represent what we
And he's not going to say whether it's enough good or
Oh,
not.
that's enough really good. No, so you're talking about your ability to be a member of a team. What is that style that you bring to a team?
And so thank you for asking that, because, we've heard about expertise and we've heard questions about, how we would approach being part of this team, especially in a rebuilding situation such as this. And I feel that my expertise is that I don't claim an expertise, and rather I would work to leverage and balance the expertise of the people that are on the school committee. And the best way for me to do that, as I know Ms. Kieran was talking about, questioning, and again, facilitating conversation. And for me, in order to effectively address situations and, issues that are up for consideration, I obviously have my own ability to form my opinions. But again, I think it does take a team approach and the individual talents and skill sets of everybody on the team. And a quick kind of side note to that is, I've been a soccer player and a soccer coach, most of my adult life. Recently, there came a situation where the town basketball team, basketball league for 7th and 8th grade girls, was in a situation that they had too many girls for one team and not enough girls so too many girls for one team. So they needed to make an extra team, and they needed a coach in order to make that happen. And nobody who knew anything about basketball, I guess, was available, because they asked me, and I don't know anything about basketball. But I wanted my daughter to be able to play. I wanted the other girls to be able to play. So not having any expertise whatsoever with basketball, I took this team of girls and I was able to figure out who's going to be the best at center, who's going to be the best at guard, who's going to be the best at forward. And, again, just by my observations, just by talking with the girls, getting their input on where they felt most comfortable, we're going into the playoffs next week at 10-2. So that's just kind of a, might seem like a small example of my style in terms of being part of a team, but I think it's a very valid one.
As a public school, primary school teacher, one of the questions I do have is the time commitment that you're able to make. Are you able to make the time commitment that it requires to complete the, requirements of this program?
Yeah, and I've heard you ask that to every candidate. So again, I appreciate that question, and it was something that I considered very heavily because I am involved with a lot. But at this stage of the game, I just felt I spend so much time with my school family and school children that at this point with this rebuilding, I just felt that I could really be valuable, and also, want to give back to the district where my own kids go to school. So I made the decision after talking with my family and, reflecting very heavily that I would make the commitment. So yes.
Thank you. Ryan?
Hi, Jana. As a counselor, can you tell us what you find to be the best way to educate students on social and emotional curriculum?
So, you guys are good questions, even though I've been listening to them all night.
I'm switching them up tonight, keeping people on their toes.
So, educating students, the academics, the teachers and the educators and the paraprofessionals in our building, in Long Meadow Public Schools, it's just the job requires patience. You're wearing so many different hats. I think I read somewhere that educators make thousands of decisions every day. And so, my part as a counselor in, if a teacher is having a student who is distracted or presenting challenging behaviors, I'll work with that student to try and, give them the skills so that they could ask for help instead of shouting out, or, have some coping skills right at the desk instead of, hitting their peer. But the best way that we've found to do that is to be engaging and creative. And over the summer, this past summer, we turned our office, which was, you had your normal counselor's office, you had the tables that you would sit with the kids, you had some toys or some games that you would engage with them. But over this past summer, we turned our office into a room that has sensory. So we have a crash pad, we have a barber's chair that spins for the vestibular, we have, punching bag, energy ropes, we have different sensory materials, and, we do have classrooms with students who have autism and sensory needs, but we designed this so that every student, 340 plus students, would be able to access, because those sensory skills are important for all of our students, and all of the adults in the building as well. So the biggest thing is engaging. And when I do lessons, I'll dress up like, our closet at home is filled with, I've been everything from, a chicken to a turkey to a, hot fudge sundae. And I'm at the elementary level, so although I do have experience working, I run a boxing program for middle school students and high school students as well. And if I could have dressed up like a chicken there, I would have, because they also, they get engaged when they see that you're able to be yourself and be silly and meet them where they're at. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Ron?
Thanks. What do you think would be some good strategies to improve communication between the school committee and our community?
I would love to be able to, help with that. I think, there's, we talked about running the school district, with a business component. I do think that it would be important for the school committee to have its own little marketing campaign. I don't see anything wrong with kind of bragging about, what y'all do. You're giving up hours of your time, and one of my original letters to the school committee was, recognizing that and appreciating that, and it's okay to celebrate yourselves. I have, I've sent random notes to Dr. O'Shea. I've sent random notes to my, leaders in my district, leaders in my school, colleagues in my school, from everybody, from nurse to custodian to principal, just randomly saying, hey, thanks for being awesome, or, thanks for doing what you're doing, especially the leaders in our district, because, most times people reach out when there's something wrong, and so I want to be reaching out and saying, hey, thanks for just being you today, or, thanks for giving me that smile this morning, I really needed it. So I think it's okay to celebrate. I think it's okay to market ourselves, and that could be done in different ways, but I think simple meet and greets with food and with activities that the kids, like always bringing the kids, since we're here for the kids, it is a good way to engage. But, I think flipping the script, so to speak, and marketing that the school committee is an amazing, entity. And that was also one of my, reasons for wanting to apply, is because, shame on me for not paying attention the first time around. I took it for granted. We have a school committee, we have a process, and, y'all are going to do what you need to do, and, and I took that for granted. And so I don't want to do that, and I don't want other people like me to do that, because I don't want to find ourselves in a situation again where we're like, what the heck is the school committee doing? And now we're in this, this conundrum that we're in. So, I think it's okay to celebrate.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'll pass it this time.
Okay, Bill?
What do you see as the opportunities and challenges in this district?
So the opportunities, my kids do everything from, robotics to drama to, the sports. We're just very, very blessed, and coming from, working in a district such as Springfield, where, you're you're scrapping and you're scrimping and you're trying to make sure that you can make every opportunity available for our students. And here in Longmeadow, my kids, they're very fortunate, so they do have a lot of opportunities for growth. I definitely think, we've heard mention opportunities for developing more partnerships with community entities. In my school where I'm at, we've gone from, we went from a level 4 school, which was underperforming in all areas, to, we're slowly meeting our goals and making our gains. But a lot of what we did was building partnerships with communities and creating these opportunities. We have high school students from Longmeadow come in. Mr. Dalton was talking about creating that diversity. We have high school students from Longmeadow come into my school in Springfield. I think that is a great opportunity, but I do think there's room for developing more. I think sometimes Longmeadow is seen as this affluent place, and nobody needs to partner with Longmeadow because they have everything. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think we have a lot of hardworking people who we still have to watch our own budgets at home. I'm going out of pocket for programs that I'm working on. So I think we have a lot of opportunities that are fantastic, but the opportunity for growth in terms of building those partnerships is definitely there. In terms of the challenges we've heard, special education, we've heard the budget, all of those staple challenges seem to be, the highest on the list right now.
Thank you.
Marie?
Are you pulling papers or going to run for
I
election?
did today.
Okay.
Fortunately, somebody reminded me that I didn't really understand at first that I needed to do that. Like, I was thinking, okay, should I wait to see if I'm selected? Otherwise, I'll just let the awesome people that are selected, But so I pulled them today for 1 year.
For the 1 year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Question for you about any experience you've had or things you draw on to help you set policies for the school district, or things you've done in experience in setting policies?
Yeah, actually, so I was, I think it was my first or second year I started as a counselor in Springfield, and I was asked to be a part of the school counseling policy and program revision team, and that was for the district. I've also been asked to sit on feedback sessions for the attendance policy for the district, and I was part of the when we first started making bullying policies, the safety and security and the safe schools environment. I was part of the feedback sessions and the planning for those bullying policy as well.
Great, thank you. Ryan?
I'm going to repeat a question. So, can you tell me what you think your vision of the Longmeadow graduate is?
So, again, my kids they're very blessed. We've had amazing teachers and educators from day one. And, as a counselor, I guess, and as a parent, and as just a general nice person, I've always looked at the report cards, and they know the routine by now. I've always looked at the report cards, and yeah, the academic grades are great, but the question was always, okay, what do they say about your work habits? What do they say about you being a kind friend? What do they say about so the social emotional piece, and we heard the other candidates articulate beautifully how they would want the high school graduate to be fulfilled and to be happy and confident. And I couldn't have said it better myself. I also think I would want to make sure that, they had access to the opportunities that they were seeking. If, let's say my daughter wants to, go into theater straight out of high school. I would want her to have, again, the confidence, like Mr. Knowlton said, of pursuing drama as opposed to thinking that she needs to go to a 4-year college. I've worked with high school students, again, in the boxing program who, one went on from the program one was just had given up on graduating altogether and participated in our program, and he came back the next year. And he came back the next year. And then so we were able to, I believe, and he even stated that help him graduate. So he went on to work he just, went into a job. We've had other students go on to ROTC. We've had other students go into the traditional boxing program and box competitively. So, I would just want them to understand that, they're not stuck going in one direction. And again, the social emotional piece, I would just want to make sure that they had the coping skills because, even as adults, even myself, it's a hard kind of mixed up world right now. So it might sound like a cliche, but it is what it is, and I would want them to have the coping skills to be able to emotion management, communicate. Again, everybody else articulated it beautifully, but A pluses, that's great, but when you get out into the real world and you're having to sit at a table and problem solve with other people who are completely, like Armin was saying, him and Mr. Fitzgerald, like completely, but at some point you got to come together and figure it all out, and so I would want them to have those skills as well.
Thank you.
Ron?
I was just wondering, as a parent and educator, what do you think the most exciting thing about education is these days?
Oh, yeah, you snuck that one in. The most exciting thing about education. I think in my son's case, he's so passionate and immersed in, they've got this robotics club going on. He's taught himself, and I don't know all the scientific technology lingo, but he's spent hours at night teaching himself these robotic coding and the engineering systems. And I mean, when you have a child that is devoted to something, that's exciting. STEM is exciting. And then when you've got my daughter who spends hours chatting with her friends about they were doing the variety show tonight, and the opportunity to perform and show off a little bit and be yourself. That's exciting. She loves her teachers, and she wrote them all little, she's just excited about school, and again, particularly the relationship she has with teachers and the creative arts opportunities. And with my son, he's just, that experiential learning. I think somebody was talking about, I think it was Dr. Bell maybe, we're beyond the four walls in a classroom. Mm-hmm. We are out there with internet access, and the robotics team is going to Western New England, and and the robotics is just one component, but that's what I can speak to because that's what my son, he's totally immersed, and when he's excited, then I'm excited. And as an educator in Springfield, you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm working towards bringing robotics to my school in Springfield.
That's great.
So we've already got collaborations going on that. So, it's contagious. And, for me then to be able to say, okay, here's another great thing you can bring to my school, bring to the district, that's just, that is exciting.
That is great, thank you.
Richard?
No, thank you.
Bill?
I'm all set.
Marie?
Hi. Sometimes being on the school committee, you have to make a decision that's unpopular with one group and popular with another group. And you hear about it. And when you're on these committees, you'll hear about it when you're shopping with your family, or you're out and you're doing sports and you're doing something else. And anger sometimes does come back. How would you handle or market those difficult decisions that are not going to be popular with everyone in the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, going back to what I said earlier about being a visual learner, I believe in you know, if you have a formula that you're laying out, you know, so for the budgeting, and I'm no finance person, so, but if you have a formula that you're laying out, you know, that's black and white. If you have a decision that you're making with a team, at some point, that decision is based on evidence, is based on data, is based on, you know, whether it's anecdotal or whether it's, you know, quantitative, qualitative. It's going to be based on facts that you can see, facts that you can grab onto. And, you know, I know that people can view facts differently, or maybe, you know, receive them differently or hear them differently. But the bottom line is, if I'm confident, and I know that I would be, that the team has come to a decision based on evidence, then that's the way it would be marketed or explained. And you know, and again, I don't think it hurts to be as open as possible with, you know, how that decision was made. I think it's, you know, the best way to be. And in fact, when, you know, the you know, in November, when the issue came up regarding, you know, the impending vote regarding the superintendent's contract, you know, my husband and I, again, realizing how did we not pay attention to this, you know, we went on to social media and we said, go to the meeting, hear the facts, ask for facts. And so, you know, I think it just boils down to, if you have a team of experts in different areas and they're all looking at the different pieces of that puzzle, and, you know, there's formulas that have been looked at or there's data that has been looked at, you know, I think you can't go wrong.
I have a follow-up question. So that's sort of pulling into what I've been always talking about, the tax ceiling. If we're unable to work together and push off or solve this problem, would you be able to sit down and deal with those difficult decisions and cuts?
Yes, because I know that there's people, you know, like Armin's got business, Mr. Mazza's got business, you know, like I'm sure other people on the committee have that business sense, and, you know, I would rely on them and their expertise, and again, the conversations. It's not going to be, you know, a one comment, and then the decision's made. Those are complicated issues. But I'm a, you know, as Armin pointed out, I'm a Giants fan in Patriots Nation, and you know, I still wear my jacket proudly. So, you know,
Giants are okay,
as
just
a
don't
loyal
wear Jets.
So, you know, my point is, as a loyal team member, and you know, I don't know if you had a chance to look at my reference comments, but, you know, loyal and team-based, you know, so I would feel confident as a member of a team that came to a very thoughtful decision and standing by it.
Thank you.
Actually, I am going to have one. So we've heard this a couple times about recognizing that education no longer is just confined within four walls. How do we support or build alternative pathways for the district for children to go into things, and I'm going to say coding, not codeine.
I did watch that last night,
Yeah,
so
pretty
yeah.
funny. Or you know, some of the technical trades, or other alternative pathways that may not go to the traditional four-year college pathway.
Yeah, and again, a great question. I do go back to, you know, the formation of partnerships and collaborations with, you know, the partnership that Longmeadow High School has now with Western New England in terms of, you know, and I'll say it again, the robotics. You know, those kids are going over there. They're cutting, you know, again, I don't know how it all works, but cutting metal and participating in lab work that, you know, again, is going to inspire, is going to excite, you know, the students. It's going to excite the teachers. It's going to excite the mentors, you know, to come out and want to help more. And, you know, like, and maybe somebody was talking about having internships. And, you know, there's a couple of the robotics mentors have already said, I'd love to have students come out and intern for me. And, you know, maybe that student realizes, you know, a four-year university isn't for them, and they want to go right into it. So, you know, that's just leveraging partnerships and collaborations and seeking them out. You know, and again, in my, at my school and in my district, we've had to do that. And now, my school is blessed with, we've got at least 40-plus strong partners, and, and we keep them engaged, and we celebrate them every year. We have a Friends of, I don't want to say my school's name, but we have a Friends Appreciation Breakfast, and we invite all of our partners in, and, and they come in and they're celebrated. They get a little certificate, and then they want to come back, and they want to keep working, and then maybe they have somebody that they're connected to. So it's about that, I mentioned connectivity and productivity, and and that's something else that I could offer to the committee, that thought process of seeking things out and filling in those gaps and finding those opportunities.
Thank you.
Gianna, is there any program, one or two programs that you would like to see the Long Meadow Public School implement that you could see using the school committee as a springboard for doing?
Yeah, so we, so again, as a school counselor, and I deal primarily with social, emotional, behavioral challenges. So we have, our tier 3. We have students with significant needs in that regard, and then we have our, tier 2 who are kind of middle of the road, maybe have some challenges here and there, and then we, got our tier 1 students who, we want to make sure that they're getting serviced. So maybe a year and a half ago, we recognized that we wanted to be able to reach every single student with some of those, emotion management and social emotional skills, and just starting with simple mindfulness and breathing. And so we have since created a mindfulness and breathing program at my school, and we are starting to, our PE teacher who does it has presented it to, his district colleagues. We're going to be presenting our efforts at the Springfield Wellness Council coming up next week. And so it's rolling out, and it's shown to be very effective so far. And we're now in the process of working on some data collection and analysis tools to monitor and to evaluate that. But it's simple breathing. We've tied in some yoga to it, and it makes a profound, like if I asked all of you right now just to kind of, close your eyes and take some deep breaths in through your nose and out through your, you'll feel your shoulders relax. You'll feel you'll feel more grounded. And it's not meditation. It's not, anything religious. It's just simple connecting with yourself, connecting with the ground, and breathing. And we wanted to do that because, there was talk about bringing in restorative justice and conflict resolution programs to the schools. And my thought was, you're not going to be able to have a child participate in conflict resolution or mediation unless that child is able to control their emotions, unless that child's able to stop and take a moment and just breathe. And adults too. Like, I'm sure that there's been conversations in your own homes or in your own businesses or, even here where it would have benefited you to just stop and breathe and even say, I just need to take a moment and breathe. And so that's what we're teaching our kids. And, so we've got preschoolers through fifth graders, but we do incorporate it with some of the stuff that we're doing with middle and high school. And, I think it would be fantastic. And there's really no cost. We do it through our physical ed, our director of health and wellness for the district, has allowed us to do this during our PE classes. And so the PE teacher reaches every single student in the building with these simple breathing skills. So I think it would be very valuable and easily adapted.
Thank you. Ryan, do you have any?
I'm good, thank you.
Ron?
No, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other additional? No, we don't? Okay. Gianna, thank you very, very much. And that concludes our meetings this evening. I do want to thank all 10 applicants for these 4 positions. And I particularly want to thank the 5 people who came this evening for switching after we advertised it would be Monday night, being able to make yourselves available for Tuesday night. That certainly helped us out. Hopefully it gave you little bit of a fairer play than you might, or somebody might have otherwise had, and we tried to squeeze everybody into one evening. So before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I just want to once again go over our schedule next week. On Monday, the 4th of March, there's a regular select board meeting at 7 p.m. that'll be in this room and on this TV station. But Tuesday night, that's March 5th at 5:30 p.m. I think I've said it enough times. Hopefully nobody will show up here late. But at 5:30 p.m. we'll be here to make our selections and appointments to the for the vacancies on the school committee. And again, I want to thank everybody for participating, and thank the people who have on the committee here who put in the time to go through this. Does anybody else have any comments before I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, this is going to be impossible.
You have some very good candidates. You're absolutely right. Very good. Other than that, Bill.
I make a motion to.
Oh, okay. There's
Second.
motions made by Mr. Lowe and seconded by Mr. Foster to adjourn the select board, and all those in favor, the vote is 4-0. Thank you very much, folks, and good night, and we'll see you for the select board meeting next Monday night.